Megan McCorston. She was away, I believe. Ben Naki. They'll be joining us late. May,
Here.
thank you. Bob Peters is here. Napua.
Ale.
Mari.
Yeah.
Carrie is also absent. Melody.
Aloha.
We have a quorum. We have 6 voting members present. Ben will be joining us a little bit late, but we can therefore proceed with the meeting this morning. Ben?
Hi, I'm here.
Okay. I'm having troubles hearing people. Can we make this?
Oh, yeah, we can do it on the, you know, can you see the volume up there? Actually, you just hit volume up. Is that good? Okay, then have somebody talk.
Okay, Ben, would you tell me you're here again, please?
Hi, Bob and everyone. I'm here.
That's perfect. Thank you, much better. Thanks, Christina. Thanks,
Sure.
Ashley. We, just to reiterate, to make sure everyone is heard, we do have a quorum so that we can proceed with business. And the first item, action item is to review and approve the minutes from the May 11th meeting. Take a moment to take a look at those meetings, and then the chair will entertain a motion to approve them as presented. May I have a motion to approve as presented?
Hi, Bob. This is May. I move the motion to approve the minutes.
Is there a second?
Okay,
Thank you. Is there any discussion? All right, hearing none, let's move to a vote. Kailani,
Aye.
Ben,
Hi.
May,
Aye.
I vote aye. Napua,
Aye.
Mari,
Aye.
Melody.
Aye.
The minutes have been approved as circulated. My apologies, I did not take attendance of our ex officio non-voting members. I will do that now. Dana Luca,
Here.
Rochelle Mahoy is away. Steve Schatz is also away. Matt Shim. Matt? Keiko, are you here as his designee?
I thought I was Matt in, but maybe he.
All right, we'll check back later. I didn't know he was not going to be here, so we will check.
Oh, he's in the waiting room.
We just let him in.
Okay. Is he there? Okay, Matt. Are you here? Okay, let's get back. Matt, are you okay?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Sorry.
No,
Trying to connect. I'm at the quiet airport, so.
okay, thanks, Matt. All right, let's continue with the agenda. Um, Next item on the agenda is an opportunity for public comment. A reminder, there's a 2-minute time limit and speakers' comments must address an agenda item. Are there any public comments to be shared at this point in the meeting? Have anything? No. Actually, nothing. Right, hearing no public comments to be offered at this point, we will now move to item 4 on the agenda. And we're fortunate to have Jeremy Heyer with us today, the supervisor from the home visiting unit of the Department of Health. And we have him long distance. Jeremy, thank you, from Washington, D.C. We're fixing your day so that you could fit us in, and I hope you had a chance for dinner before you had to meet with us. We'll turn this portion of the meeting over to Jeremy. This is an information setting. You may remember we were requested to set up an opportunity to learn more about home visiting and how it functions. And Aaron arranged with Jeremy to join us today. So Jeremy, I'll turn it over to you, and thank you again.
Thank you, Bob, and everybody. Just checking, can everybody hear me okay?
You're a little bit soft.
You should turn it up.
We'll turn it up on our end, see if that helps.
All righty, and I put the microphone a little closer too, if that helps.
Yep.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you again for the invitation. And yes, I did have a chance to eat, so I am ready to share a presentation. I'm going to request to share my screen. Is that possible?
Yeah.
I think Ashley's going to try and give you permission. Hold on a second.
All righty.
Sure. Yeah, give it a try.
I got it. Okay. So this is about an evidence-based home visiting program that we run in Hawaii. It does serve at-risk communities, and we do have services on each county. Within the Department of Health, we are the lead agency responsible for carrying out the evidence-based home visiting services. And you'll see a summarized organizational chart. You can go online for a full DOH organizational chart. But we do have a small but mighty team. We're dedicated, and we have skilled group of professionals with a strong sense of collaboration who help us carry out our mission. Despite our size, we're able to achieve some remarkable results. Our federal grant requires us to demonstrate improvement, and we've been able to demonstrate that due to the commitment of many what we call local implementing agencies or nonprofits in the state of Hawaii, and I'll share more about that soon. So just an overview about home visiting services. We're offering some resources and skills to pregnant people and at-risk families. We're targeting prenatal to age 5 or kindergarten entry. And we're empowering families to raise physically, socially, and emotionally healthy children who are prepared for learning. Families participate in a home visit. Right now, we're doing some virtual visits because of the pandemic, and our national models that we use like as a recipe for delivering services support this practice. And so we're still in fidelity with the model and are achieving intended outcomes. Families that are participating in the program receive support. We help connect to other social services and help make sure that the child is developmentally on target and connect that family to needed services. There we are. Hawaii actually has a rich history with home visiting. And in the 1975, some of the very beginning structure to provide evidence-informed services began. With Department of Health as a partner, 1985, we were able to pilot early identification and home visiting components. And some of these services have been adopted by national models. The Healthy Start program was the old name, and it was not evidence-based, but it was adopted by Prevent Child Abuse America and adapted into what's known as the Healthy Families America model that's offered nationwide. During the economic downturn, we used to be statewide, and we were no longer able to provide services statewide. A little bit later, Obama signed the Affordable Care Act, and it began to provide infrastructure and support for building home visiting services nationwide. In 2017, we established the Your Ohana Network, and that's our branded name that we use on our websites and our promotional materials after we did some marketing. We are established in Hawaii Revised Statute. It does provide the authorization for the Department of Health to provide evidence-based home visiting services and an early identification component, all within the amount of funding that is available. So a large portion of our funding does come from a federal grant. We lovingly call it the McV grant, or the Maternal, Infant, and Early Childhood Home Visiting Grant. This legislation has been reauthorized a couple of times already, and most recently, I got the date wrong in there, my apologies, December 2022, just a few months ago, it was reauthorized for another 5 years, and across the whole United States, it does double funding over the course of 5 years. So about the services itself, we have known about ACEs, and we were able to bring in a conference to help share information early on about 8 years ago to our early childhood programs, exploring more about what ACEs mean to services and most importantly, how we can address ACEs and provide trauma-informed care to promote some resilience, healing, and restore positive life trajectories. So we do use a couple of frameworks to guide our work. We know that in a normal, healthy developmental trajectory, that families are supported with relationships and have stimulated experiences in a healthy environment. And that some of our families are experiencing significant adversity. That may be, and maybe several different significant adversities. These adversities may impair health and development. And we're trying to figure out how are we going to help establish additional support to help restore that healthy trajectory. So in order to do that, home visiting is one of many strategies that are helping to improve developmental trajectories. And the top part of this graph, you see that the green is a typical healthy developmental trajectory, where the American Academy of Pediatrics, the anticipatory guidance and reading and activities and appropriate discipline can lead to a healthy trajectory. There can be some at-risk trajectories, and maybe language isn't stimulated as early as infrequently, resulting in a word gap. And then sometimes there's going to be some high-risk trajectory where we may identify developmental delay and really need to provide intervention in these early years. Home visiting covers a wide span. And so since we're from prenatal to kindergarten entry, it allows our home visitors and parent educators to really establish relationship. And we find that a key component for advocating for themselves in services and also connecting them to community resources. So you may recognize some familiar names here. We currently contract with the local implementing agencies found on this screen. These folks are committed to providing services in our communities. They select a model which best serves the communities that they serve, and they implement, train their home visitors, connect within their community, establish clear points of contacts with community referrals, and also MOUs or other formal agreements to more solidify relationships. Throughout the state, this program is supporting a little less than 100 FTE or full-time equivalent positions throughout the state. You can see that the bulk of our services are in funding, and FTE are the home visitors that are providing services. That second line is family resource specialists. Those are our early identification staff that are working in birthing hospitals and in prenatal settings, trying to identify families that would best benefit from our services. And then the rest, you see that there is a burden to the program to achieve the outcomes that we're looking to achieve. There's assessments that we're completing, and there's data to collect, and there's reports that we must meet to satisfy our grant requirements. This next slide shows the islands where we serve and their contact information for families to call to ask more about programs. This also is a great phone number for our community partners to contact to establish some connections. So again, we're on all islands. Due to the limiting funding, we're not everywhere, but in the grant, that McPhee grant, we are required to do a statewide needs assessment and look at various at-risk characteristics to determine the communities that have the highest need. Target population, I believe we covered that. But what I do want to specify and make very clear is that our services in the Department of Health home visiting program are voluntary. And secondly, there is an eligibility criteria. Our screeners help families navigate through a talk story format, that screening process to determine eligibility. If a family isn't eligible for our home visiting program, then we are offering other connections to community resources that may be helpful. And especially if we have identified something in that screening process, that we're going to make sure to have more of a warm handoff whenever we can for those families. So here's our priority populations: low-income families, pregnant women under 21, families with a history of child abuse and neglect, families with a history of substance abuse, families who have users of tobacco in the home, families who have or have had a child or children with low student achievement, families who have a child or children with developmental delay or disabilities, and then armed forces. These are all self-reports, so we are fortunate that we don't have to demonstrate proof of income, and we do have some leadway in determining what does low student achievement mean for that family. So it's not something that is completely black and white and defined, because it is based on self-report. As of our 2019 numbers, just to give you an idea of where our current families are lying there, you can see the majority of our families that we serve all have low income. And we do have a significant, I think, percentage. I think 10% of our participants having child abuse or neglect history seems significant to me. So it shows to me that we are screening and finding the families that would most benefit for services. I mentioned a little bit about some requirements. So we have benchmark areas to demonstrate improvement. We last measured them in 2020, and we were fortunate to demonstrate improvement in all 6 out of 6 benchmark areas. I don't think we'll be able to maintain that forever, particularly with pandemic struggles, but we are hitting the mark. And in this area, you can see that there's maternal and child health areas, child abuse and neglect, and maltreatment prevention, school readiness, intimate partner violence, family economic self-sufficiency, and coordination and referrals are all different areas that we're tracking to determine if we're making improvements. We do have a website that we use as a recruitment tool, and to share some information, participants can click on Enroll Today to be connected with one of our screeners and support specialists. And then also we have a portal here for our partners that will allow them to make referrals on behalf of the family. This may particularly be helpful for families with English as a secondary language, or in settings where maybe they don't have the technology to use the referral form. I know we have time for questions, I believe, in the agenda. And so thank you for allowing me to present. And I'll place in my chat window my email address should anyone want to connect directly.
Thank you, Jeremy. And we'll open it up to the floor for questions or comments for Jeremy. Any questions? Jeremy, I have one, and this may be something you answered and I just didn't pick it up. How well do you think you're meeting the breadth of needs across the state? Are there gap areas that you're aware of? Do you feel that you're tapping in pretty well to those in need, or is there a much broader need that you'd like to be meeting?
Well, that's a really great question. And I do spend a lot of time thinking about the right level of services. Now, this McV funding, they're very clear on it. In this last round of reauthorization in December 2022, both sides of the aisle, Democrats and Republicans, both agreed on one thing. And it was not even a question, it was an instant vote, and they moved on. And that was about low intensity services. Maybe the thought is that some families may benefit from having someone check in after birth with low intensity, maybe 3 visits. And we could set up a curriculum around that and everything. And we could cast a wider net. But Congress is not interested in providing McPhee funds for low intensity service models. So they have the evidence base, they want comprehensive results. That's the purpose of this funding. And it just gets a little challenging to navigate what they're calling a maintenance of effort. And now with the new legislation, they have a matching requirement, and both of them have different definitions of what can count and how it can count. And we can't really use we couldn't count a universal home visiting model or a low intensity model without it getting charged under our administrative cap. And we're already so close to the 25% that I know it's not feasible with the current state of funding.
Thank you.
But one other area that I really feel like it's a challenge for us, and it's been ongoing. It's we do a screening for depression, and we can identify someone who's likely would benefit from recommended mental health services. And it is very challenging for us to connect the family to recommended mental health services. There's all sorts of various reasons, and some of it can be about the community and perception about mental health and availability. And so we've tried to make this a focus of our continuous quality efforts, improvement efforts. And it still, we're not moving it quite as far as I'd like to see. I'd like to be well over 50%, 75%. When we say, you know, we think we have a screen positive for depression, we'd really like to connect them. And we're at 15% or so. So that's our current struggle.
Mhm. Has the current emphasis on trauma and informed care benefited the work that you're doing?
I think so. And I see it a lot from the home visitors themselves and how they approach their work. And I think we're building a culture of support, because I don't think you can address trauma-informed care and build it into practice for serving families without addressing your own organization. And so it has like layered effects that I'm seeing. And I think it's a good scaffolding to our larger approach for working on identifying health disparities and promoting health equity.
I have a question.
Okay.
My background is pediatrics, and then when we want to make a referral, do we make a referral directly? Because when sometimes I ask the public health nurse to go between. If it's a hospital setting, we have social workers, so they pick up, or those people actually come to the burning floor and then kind of pick up some of the cases too. But how can we connect our family to your program?
There's several ways, and I just want to make sure I heard everything. I heard that you're working with social workers who are on the birthing floors, and that you're identifying people that may benefit from services, and you're wanting to, okay, got it. So there's that website is yourohana.org. And you can find our partners there and their phone numbers and connect directly to them. It is island specific, so we do use those local implementing agencies that carry out our work, and that would be your best primary line. I can help bridge connections, and I'd be absolutely happy to do so. But about that birthing hospitals, we're trying to get back into birthing hospitals. COVID-19 policies and procedures vary from hospital to hospital in the state, and we've had some successes in some areas and not in others. But I do think that there's, I'm looking forward to getting back into the hospitals and screening. It's I think a higher quality experience of the screening process, and we can identify more needs and connect families to address those unmet needs.
Yeah, actually in the hospital setting, it's easier because we have lots of people to help out. But in the outpatient clinic, we just find out as we talk with the family. So if that website is the number to call, then it's easier. All the clinicians can figure out how to get there. And then also one more question, I'm sorry, they have the eligibility criteria, right? Is that and or, for example, do you have to meet the poverty line, below poverty line to get any services? Or if you have, 5 children, 2 of them actually falling apart in the school, can we make a referral, although they don't meet the eligibility criteria financially?
So they do need to meet a series of eligibility criteria. I showed you the priority population where they need to meet one of those. We do have another screening tool that we use that helps us better identify families that may benefit from services. and align with our goals for reducing child abuse and neglect and, intimate partner violence. And so that's where we rely on our screeners to go through that process. It does bring up some challenging topic areas that, it requires some skills, some soft skills we do a talk story format. So we're not going through these things and doing a checklist. And then we have a little bit of leadway. I was able to get a 10% of the number of families that can be served. We can kind of waive the eligibility criteria. We'd give that leadway for, we call it, clinical leadway or discretion, so that if they find a family and they're like, this family would really benefit from services, that's another area where we try to open up the door so that it's not so strict.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Jeremy? I'm going to ask you one more, Jeremy, and that is, does the Home Visiting Association have any priorities that the Early Learning Board should be sensitive to or know about?
Well, I think this is an area where, I'm in the executive branch. And so with this question about maintenance of effort and matching funds that get rolled out over the 5 years, that's not something that I get to decide on how much funding comes in. So in terms of getting the government to work together on all sides of all the branches, or at least the legislative and the executive on this side, I think it will require some coordination over the next few years. This current reporting period, we got an increase of the base grant, but it's in the next cycle that eventually HRSA is going to be asking us, how much money are we going to ask for? And I'll need to be able to provide an answer to that. And I'm just part of the puzzle on that. So we are working, there are a group of the home visiting programs that are meeting. I provide a congressional research service document that provides estimates of McVie probable funding under the reauthorization. So I think I'm getting the right information to the right people's hands, but if anybody would like a copy of that congressional research estimate, I'd be happy to provide it. My email is in the chat window.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any other questions in the chat, so we will give you back some of your evening. Hopefully you're staying out of that horrible smoky weather that seems to have hit the east portion of the country, and it'll disappear before you return, I hope too. Thank you again for your time today, Jeremy. We really appreciate it, and it's expanded our understanding. We have more to learn, that's for sure. Let's keep the connection going in the future, and no matter who is sitting here in the board seats of the future, we want to keep that relationship going. Thank you again. We appreciate your time and your expertise.
Aloha.
Aloha.
Thank you for the opportunity.
And the next item on the agenda is the Executive Office on Early Learning with updates and a focus on Ready Keiki and the PDGB5. And I'm going to turn it over to Yuko and her staff. Yuko?
Hi, good afternoon, everybody.
How about, Jordina, can you start off with our legislative updates?
Sure, I don't have anything in addition to what was in the written updates. The bills that we were tracking that had passed have not yet been enacted, so I'm happy to provide an update to the board when that happens, but also happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. I don't believe Colleen is on, but we wanted to share that our EOEL public pre-K team presented at the NAEYC Professional Learning Institute this past week, and it was on engaging cross-sector professional development with an equity lens. And they were able to present with UH on that. The pre-K team completed their abbreviated version of the induction program for the schools that are going to be opening up classrooms this year in 23-24. So usually what EOEL has done in the past is the whole first year, after we find out a room is going to open, they take that first year to do the induction and onboarding and ordering of supplies. And our team actually did it in about 2 months. So I appreciate them going all over the place to do this for the 11 schools. This summer institute is going to take place in July, and the pre-K team's looking forward to working with those colleagues. There's the early childhood, the summer institute flyer. If you're not able to see it, please send me an email and I can give you the flyer. And next, Alohi.
Yes, hi everyone. Nice to see you all this afternoon. I just wanted to share that regarding our early childhood state plan dashboard, we have completed the first review with the SI subcommittee, Strategic Implementation Subcommittee of ELB. So EOBL will be able to revise each of the sections of the dashboard. There's 5 sections corresponding with the 5 blocks, and then we'll be able to get back to the subcommittee very soon. So hopefully soon we'll be able to share the web-based dashboard with the rest of the board members. And then I do have something here for PDGB5, but Yuko will be going into that more later on in our update presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Alohi. And Chris?
Hello, everyone. I feel like a broken record with this first bullet. We're continuing to slog through this process of getting our state level MOUs vetted by AGs and then out for signatures. We started the process actually back in December in anticipation of legislation starting up in January and knowing that people would be really busy. And here it is in almost mid-June, and we are still only very partially accomplished this goal. So this particular deliverable, as well as a 2023 Head Start fact sheet that we usually try to publish each year, are a couple of the unfinished deliverables that I'm trying to complete by the end of June. The majority of our Head Start classrooms are closed for summer break. A few of them are operating on an extended school year through additional county funds, for example. But our early Head Start programs are in operation for our infants and toddlers. And staff will be returning in mid to late July for pre-service training, setting up their classrooms and conducting initial home visits with their families to start out the new school year. All of our programs start out at different times in August to resume services to our young kids and our families. So mahalo.
Thank you, Chris. And then in terms of family support, I just wanted to highlight a few things. The top, well, these pictures come from the Keikio Ka'aina Ho'ike that just happened the other week, and you can see it was a huge turnout, and it was absolutely wonderful event. And on the top left, you can see they had a lot of vendors there and services for families to browse and spend some time with to learn about activities and resources that are available to their families. And then on the right side on the top, you can see the amount of families that were there. And so we know that Keikio Ka'aina is cultivating their families, their children, and culture. And it was a really neat event. On the bottom is a bus from our DOE Homeless Concerns Liaisons bus. And this bus goes out to different communities. And if you take a look, I took a couple pictures of what's actually on the inside, but it's like a clothes closet so that families can clothes and other things, kind of a closet, but it's portable and it's mobile and they go throughout community. And so they also help with, enrolling families and opportunities that are necessary for them. If you see on the side of the bus, it says the Yes Project. And so the Yes Project, they go around to look, the partnership with shelters, centers, libraries, encampments, and other outreach providers. And they look at helping with identification of students, targeted outreach, supplies, food, bus pass tickets, paperwork, connections, and referrals. And this is where their Yes Project is. And so you can see how they've got buses on certain spots. We've got this mobile closet. That's what was part of that one bus. And then just different types of outreach and where they're located. And so one of the things on the bottom is that the Yes Project seeks places to park and partners and ideas. And so if you feel like you fit in anywhere, then feel free to reach out and support this effort. So for special needs and early intervention, this is indirectly related, but somewhat related. So this past earlier this month, at the very end of May, Kauai held the early learning conference. And it was actually really neat. So on the right side, you can see Stephanie from our office, and it was one of the first times that we had like our tablecloth with some things that were out on the table. And the reason why I stuck this under inclusive practices and things is because when you look at some of the topics that were focused on at this conference, it was actually really neat. So they had a huaka'i to a fish pond that was place-based. They talked about family partnership and inclusion. They talked about the power of place and belonging, building a ohana work environment, and also learning about social styles. And so what was also really neat on our table was that we also held free and no cost options to families. And what was neat about the people who actually stopped by, we had homeschool parents came by, we had students, university students who were looking for scholarships. We had people in early childhood field that were looking at how could they make progress through their career. We had somebody who came by and took a whole stack of the health standards. We had a home-based provider who was looking at how she could help her families transition into like a preschool. So she picked up some EOEL applications, and then we had the Head Start flyer there. But it was really neat to see the amount of different types of people that were coming by and also looking for different kinds of resources. And we hope to expand this also as other opportunities become available for families. So if you guys have anything coming up, we would love to be a part of that. Under health and mental health and nutrition, I wanted to share that Alohi was actually a part of this the healthy Hawaii Healthy Kids Healthy Future initiative, and it was funded by the Nemours grant. And they recently held I guess it's like their own ho'ike of their community of practices and their presentations. And so this presentation right here is from Alohi and her team, and what they were focusing on. So we're looking at farm to early care and education. And so they had to go and do some findings and some implications and think about, so what impact can this have on, on the field? And so they came up with some challenges, which was time and relationships and staff support, some lessons learned, like finding spaces and stipends and facilitation, and also sometimes workforce and accessibility in different communities. So thank you, Alohi, for participating in that too. In terms of early learning, this is where I'll just give a brief update on Ready Keiki pieces. So the Lieutenant Governor and her team have refreshed her site. So it's the same site, but it's now refreshed. And so you can look at the details at the top in terms of the tracker and the map. I think that those are the two most noticeable differences, along with apply at the top of the page. And so again, there are a lot of people who are helping and who are a part of this effort. And truly, when you see how much each group is contributing, there's it could only be accomplished with the help of everybody. So this was one of the pieces that she showed. As we've been looking at the redesigning of the spaces for children, we are being very intentional to not have it look like a converted kindergarten classroom. Because we believe that the classroom is also the third teacher. And so taking the lessons that we learned from that Association for Learning Environments conference that we went to, looking at other excellent sites here in Hawaii and putting those principles together, we're starting to create specs for preschool spaces for starting with the EOEL public pre-K. So there are certain types of aspects and a feel that we want to be available and present to the children and to the teachers and their families. The other thing that's available on the Ready Keiki site is the Ready Keiki tracker. And this is the tracking of the appropriation of the school facilities funds. So you can look at what's been appropriated for the school facilities authority, what classrooms are in pre-construction, what's in construction, and what's completed. And it's a dynamic one, so you can kind of hover over it and see how it pans out. And it also has information by county, so you can take a look at where these things are by county. Going along with that, in the map that's on the Ready Keiki site, you can see how I think the landscape is being represented here. So first off, if you look at it, there's a purple portion to it's like purple to green, but that is where job counts by zip code. So where are people working? So we're taking a look at where people are working. And then we see like these green dots. And so the size of the dot represents the amount of 3- and 4-year-olds by that zip code. So the larger the dot, the larger the quantity of 3- and 4-year-olds. Then when you look at the triangles, triangles are indicating the amount of capacity at a specific site. So small triangle might mean a smaller capacity at that site. Large triangles may indicate larger capacity at that site. And then when you're looking at the colors, so all red triangles are licensed care centers through the patch database. Then you can see the ELBL triangle, which I think it looks bluish, and the charter, which is green. And also the top where it has like actually the pin drop is where that Ready Keiki site will be. So you can see where it's located here on Kauai. And families can actually go and plug their address in, as you can see on the top left side, to see what opportunities exist either where they live or where they work by looking at the map. And going along with this, we're tracking the amount of we're really trying to push on the enrollment and the outreach of the new 11 sites. So I really want to thank our partnerships with well, Napua has been leading the outreach team, but it's also a part of the county coordinators. And so I really want to thank them for hanging EOEL banners, for asking how many people have applied, how many people have actually enrolled. And so sometimes, just so that you know, there's sometimes a difference in numbers between the people that actually apply to when you actually get them enrolled. And so right now we have 98 applicants for the 11 new sites, which is actually really promising. We're really honing in on certain communities because on one hand, you can have some that have like 25, 17, 13, 10 applications for a specific site to other sites that might have 0 or 3. And so there's a little bit of a range in terms of these initial 11, but learning how to engage in communities and also how to let people know about what opportunities exist in their communities is a next step. And so not only for EOEL, but also for all the other opportunities, just so that we can make sure we get families connected to something that could be a benefit to their families. Going along with that, the next pressing thing is always about workforce. And so our early childhood educator stipend program is still here. The summer 23 applications have all been processed and have been given out to the eligible students. And so we will receive a report on that first round of awards, and it's going to come right after the summer term ends. But we're currently accepting applications for fall of 2023. So the application deadline is July 15. So please, here's the link to apply if you're interested in applying for the Hawaii Early Childhood Educator Stipend Program, which is connected to the University of Hawaii system and community colleges. Or you can take a screenshot, take a picture of that QR code on the screen. So other system updates for us is the PDGB-5 grant. So I tried to be brief, but again, you can see on the left side, there are 6 main areas. So the comprehensive needs assessment, updating the state plan, parent-family engagement, workforce, program quality improvement, and also enhancing quality and expanding access. So on the right side, I tried to just look at things that have happened. I captured May, and so here's what has happened since then. So for the comprehensive needs assessment, we're finalizing the MOA with the vendor. For the state plan, parts of it will begin after the completion of the comprehensive needs assessment, but in the interim, as Alohi already mentioned, we're monitoring the progress of the current state plan and the strategic implementation plans that can help give us some input and feedback as we move forward with the next state plan creation. We're looking at a public website to track PDGB-5 progress. We saw a really good example of another state that actually used this to help monitor and track and let people know what's kind of going on. So we're looking at that. And also in the process of contracting services for embracing your journey in parent leadership training. In terms of the workforce, the Early Childhood Educator Compensation Task Force is right now working on a process to develop a more detailed plan to build in those pieces from the RAND report using a multi-partner approach. And also Keikio Ka'aina's application to implement a registered apprenticeship program for their employees and to be a sponsor for other interested early learning programs was recently approved. So congratulations to Keikio Ka'aina, the very first in Hawaii to have this for something that's pretty much not trades-based, which is fascinating. And I heard that they had a unanimous approval. For program quality improvement, we've initiated a contract with UH for a CQITA system. And for quality and expanding access, we released the RFA for expansion of early Head Start and FCCH partnerships. And we drafted a scope of services for developmental screenings for children in both EOL and charter pre-K classrooms. Additionally, outside of these 6 pieces, we met with our TA support person to update our TA plan, our technical assistance plan for the grants. 2 things. So we have some congratulations to 2 people in the Executive Office on Early Learning Office. So they're going to be moving on to their next best new lives. So the first one is for Chris. And so here's some highlights about Chris's time. She says she was a founding mother and teacher at St. Timothy's Children in Center Naiea. She was a preschool SPED teacher and a 3-year-old federally funded demonstration project. She's been a trainer and consultant for Head Start in Guam, Palau, Pohnpei, and Yap. She was an EC lecturer at Honolulu Community College, 27 years in Head Start as a staffer, 13 years as a Head Start State Collaboration Director, 4 of those years being in DHS under BESD and 9 years in EOEL and the DOE. So if we can give some love to Chris, congratulations on your next new life. She'll be moving on at the end of June. And we have another person moving on to their next best life, which is Colleen. So Colleen spent 10 years as a preschool teacher and administrator and family child interaction and family relationship program. She spent 6 years at UH. She had 26 years in the Department of Education, 17 years being at Enchanted Lake Elementary School as a teacher. She was a Windward District Office SPED RT, and she spent the last 9 years in EOEL. So if we can give some love to Colleen, we really appreciate you, Chris and Colleen, and we wish you all the best as you transition to your next new life. And that's the end of things.
Well, if we can add to your congratulations to Chris and Colleen, Chris has jumped in. This is me personally thanking her as the minute taker extraordinaire. Over, I can't even imagine how many years, Chris. And never once, I think, have I asked you, could you be available for a special meeting that you haven't agreed to be supportive of our efforts? So not only do we respect and admire all the gifts you've given to early childhood through Head Start, but the Early Learning Board has particularly benefited from your participation with us, your willingness to be supportive, and your volunteer spirit that's allowed us to rely on you all these years in so many different ways. So mahalo nui from all of us at the Early Learning Board. And to Colleen, my goodness, she was willing to step up and step in at a point when we really needed somebody who was calm, confident, had the institutional memory, but also the calm will to help us keep moving forward. We so appreciate Colleen's contributions. She was wonderful to work with during the interim period. And even when we had to come back and say, oh, Colleen, we need to do this for one more year, she signed up again. So hard to imagine two such special people who have given so much not being intensely involved, but I suspect they will stay connected in a variety of ways. Chris, do you have anything you want to add before we close out? Colleen's not with us today, right? Chris, do you want to add anything? No?
I just want to thank you for your kind words, Bob, and it has been a journey. I mean, I think you and I met back in 2008 when the Early Learning Council was first formed to the Head Start Act. So it's been a long journey, and you know, many folks that I've formed collaborative partners with over the years have become very dear friends. So it's a holy hole because as Bob says, I hope to stay engaged as long as people continue to invite me to play. And so I just want to challenge you all to stay the path and keep fighting the good fight, because we've accomplished a lot, but there's so much more that needs to be done, and there's so much more that needs to be done. So just encourage you to do all that you can as best that you can wherever you can. So thanks so much, everyone. Really appreciate you all.
Thank you, Chris. And Colleen is not here today. That is correct, right?
Yes, she's not.
Okay. Well, if she wants to come to our next meeting and say
Sure.
something, she's more than welcome.
Sure.
We will miss you both. We've benefited tremendously from you both. Thank you so much. Any questions for Yuko about her portion of the report, or any members of her staff before we move on? No, I don't see any, nothing in the chat. Yuko, I want to thank you for the updates, particularly on the PGGB5 and the Ready Keiki. So much is happening so fast, it's hard to keep track of all of it. It's transpiring, and the critical role of EOEL in helping to facilitate both of those initiatives is an important one for us to keep on top of. So thank you. All right, we will move to the next item on the agenda. We have one subcommittee report to be offered today, and that's from the Governance Standing Subcommittee with regard to the board transition plans. And Matt is going to report, and then I will add just a few things, a follow-up related to it based upon our special meeting. So Matt.
Hi, Bob. Can you guys hear me? Okay, I hope. Yes, okay. Sorry, I'm in the I'm at the Kauai airport. So sorry for any background noise. The subcommittee met, and one of the things that Bob found out for us is that the current board will continue to function until the new board is appointed by the governor. Bob will probably be talking a little bit more about that. But one of the things that we talked about was we need to prepare for the new board that will be coming on, and we were trying to figure out what would be the best way to get information together and created for the new board. So one of the things that we'll be doing is I will be polling the different subcommittees. I'll send some information out, but we're going to be asking them for strengths, challenges, goals, and some other questions. We'll ask key policy statements. We'll ask people to identify those key people or organizations that would be necessary. And then one of the things I'm going to be working on with UCO is to create a location for core documents that everybody can will have access to, and we can put all of our information to. So one of the other things that we're working on is basically some of those the basic information that our current board and subcommittee members can use to recruit other board members for our as we transition to the new board. So that's in general. So I was wondering if anybody had any questions or needed some more information.
Any questions for Matt?
I'm looking in the chat, and also sorry, I do not have my video on because it's making the bandwidth too low.
I don't see anything either, Matt, so thank
Okay,
you.
so Bob, I will be sending a more formal thing to share with the board, and then hopefully we can have that as another item for our July meeting, that the committees will have a chance to hopefully put some information together, and then if they have questions or want to discuss ways ahead, we can do that at the next board meeting. Thanks, Bob.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for doing it from Kauai in the airport. Appreciate that.
So I'm here at the well, I was here for 2 days at the Kauai Rural Health Association meeting that happened, and then today I got to see Carrie and Aaron because Aaron presented and Carrie was there introducing the governor.
Mhm.
Now I'm on my way home. Thanks.
All right. Yes, both Carrie and Aaron were involved in the presentation today, as I understand. And Aaron was apologetic that she could not be here as well, since she coordinated Jeremy's visit for us. So no, it's not for a lack of interest. It's just from too many commitments that made that not possible today. Two things I want to follow up on related to the board transition period. One is to remind everybody what Matt just said, that this board continues to function as all board members, whether your term ended or not, until a new board is appointed. That's our understanding from investigating how this will work. We have not received any indication of any type of transition plan that may already be in place, or any sense of what the process is going to be for the appointment of the new board. So we're waiting to hear more about that. I did want to let you know that I did follow up following our special meeting and submitted comments and recommendations around SB 1022 HD1 CD1. We primarily focused on what the recommendation was, which from us was approval with concerns. The substance of what was shared related to our support for the reduction in size, the switch away from a representative board, the inclusion of counting members. Those things we highlighted as particular pieces that we felt were beneficial. Concerns raised related to the importance of retaining stakeholder and provider voices in some form. particularly those closely related to service delivery. Also, the appointment of a board that reflects a diversity of thought and experiences to ensure issues of equity and inclusion are addressed in policies and priorities. Two particular items mentioned had to do with the need to consider inclusion of a Hawaiian medium provider and voice in some form, given our dual language state, and the potential for the way the board is being designed to have a board, both voting and non-voting, that reflects a larger percentage of public agencies and public appointees than private sector members. And to remind everyone that in the statute, the ELEL is charged with developing and administering an early learning system that includes all existing early learning programs and services, whether publicly or privately run, to keep that in mind. We noted that there will be, we offered to support the transition of the new board in whatever way might be most helpful to minimize disruption and to continue to support the efforts of the ELEL to meet its statutory responsibilities, including the availability of the chair for further discussions of both the board's position and planning for the new board appointment. So have heard nothing in response, but at least the offer has been made. And we're hoping that the governor's office may take us up on the opportunity to share some of our observations with them as they begin to plan. Should there be any indication of a time frame for the appointment of new board members and the seating of the new board, I will be sure to let you know as soon as we have any of that information. But keep in mind, as things stand now, we move forward as if the board were continuing in operation, and we would be essentially an interim board with holdovers until the new board is appointed. Any questions about that? I know some people were concerned that today was our last meeting, and it could still be our last meeting if everything happens so quickly, but we don't know that it is our last meeting. So keep that in mind.
I have a question, Bob.
Yes, ma'am.
In the previous world, today would be my last meeting. My term actually ends today. So would we just move forward that way, where this would be my last meeting?
No, you will continue as a member of the board until the new board, the total current board, whether your term ends or not, is my understanding continues.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You know, it's important from a quorum point of view, particularly, I think, so that we can continue to do business. So hopefully people will be able to remain until something happens. All right, does that help, Mel?
Yes, thank you.
That does remind me, you raised a question at the last meeting about, does the change in board have any impact upon the director's current position? And what I've been able to discover is that there's nothing in the statute that would indicate that there would be any change in circumstances for the current director with the appointment of a new board. Obviously, in the future, the board could take action if they chose to. Okay. Any other questions regarding the transition? I want to thank the governance committee for continuing to help us figure out how to navigate this change and keeping us informed about how we can support a positive transition between boards. All right, if there are no other questions, then let's move on to item 7, which is the director evaluation report. Ashley is going to assist me by sharing her screen with the report. Can we make it a little larger so that we're looking at just one page at a time?
We can.
It won't work, yeah, that. I think that's gonna be really hard for people to see. Yeah.
Take a little more.
A little more, yeah, okay. Then, thumbs up if you can see it. Okay, in this room, I see thumbs up. Okay, on the screen, I see thumbs up as well. All right. Just to give some context before I actually go into the body of the report itself. This particular document was completed by 12 of our 15 board members. And the task was to rate the director's achievement of the board-approved director evaluation priorities, which were agreed upon in December 2022, using a code of exceeds expectation, meets expectations, needs improvement, don't know. Those were the 4 categories for the period covering May 2022 to April 2023. And as part of this process, any rating or improvement needed requires an explanation of what the improvement should be and the evidence that led to the rating. And then there is a portion at the very end for additional comments that people could make, including any possible recommendations for goals, upcoming goals. Now, there also are goals built into the actual evaluation. So a survey was sent out to all board members. Those that were completed were sent to me, and I'm providing you a summary of the rating, but also a summary statement that I put together of the comment threads, looking for repeated things, not singular items, although there is one place in the recommendation where we'll share the gamut of some of those possible recommendations for the future. So let's scroll down to the board input section under item number 1. That's good right there. So this, we had agreed upon evaluating the director in 3 areas. The first 2 relate to visionary leadership, capacity building of statewide early learning system from prenatal until K entrance. Item 1.1, you see, aligns resources, including staffing, strategic initiatives, and office organization to support the development of a system for early learning statewide. And then the red print items are all indicators of what that might look like in the first year. So the results of the board input on the ratings are 17% or 2 members rated the director's achievement as exceeds expectations. 83%, 10 members rated the director's achievement as meets expectations. There were no needs for improvement indicated. So the comment thread summary that follows are these 4 points. First of all, the director instituted one-to-one meetings with staff and increasingly learned to rely upon their expertise as reflected in monthly board updates, legislative activities, including testimony, staff participation as ELB liaisons with board subcommittees, and their engagement with community stakeholder groups. Secondly, the director continues to develop an understanding of and ability to navigate the attached agency status of the EOEL to the DOE and has created a positive working relationship with the Department of Education. Third, the director has a good grasp of the state plan and SIP, the improvement plan, along with Acts 46, 210, and 259, as reflected in the budget request priorities and alignment, the facilitation and engagement with the Ready Keiki initiative, testimony offered during the legislative session, and the key role in facilitating the PDGB-5 renewal grant application and its implementation plans. This next bullet indicates an area that there were few comments on. The director's evaluation of staff's roles, responsibilities, and the related organization of the office received few comments as there was limited information upon which to evaluate the director. One board member recommends ongoing consideration of office capacity, and the chair recommends that the director continue to work with staff to examine the organizational structure of EOEL to determine if it is adequately aligned with the statute requirements and the needs of the statewide plan, sharing her conclusions with the board along with any plans for the future. So this last item, last bullet, is really a recommendation for future planning. The chair probably had more information than anyone else because Yuko and I met every 2 weeks throughout the year, and part of our conversation were around the issues of these priorities. And this conversation came up more often, and therefore the recommendation that's being offered there. So those were the comments that were offered in this particular section as summaries. Not all members offered comments, but hopefully they've been captured as presented. All right, let's move to the next item, which was 1.2 under visionary leadership and capacity building. This one related to collaborates across the public and private sectors and among public agencies to develop shared objectives and move the systems building forward. The board ratings, 4 people indicated the director exceeds expectations, which amounts to 33.3% of the board. 7 members rated the director meeting expectations at 58.3%. 1 member indicated the director's needs improvement, and this accounts for an 8.3%. Remember again, there were 12 respondents total. This accounts for the 12 responses. So the comment thread here indicates the following. First of all, the director engaged in intentional and concerted efforts to learn the early childhood ecosystem and to build collaborative relationships within that system. 2 specific items to support that: the director met with all board members to learn about the agency's stakeholders they represent and to develop an understanding of their relationships to EOEL's work. She also undertook on-site visits where appropriate, especially when meeting with early childhood providers, and met on neighbor islands with early childhood stakeholders. The director purposefully met with a variety of stakeholder groups and represented EOEL before the legislature, business groups, particularly the Business Roundtable and the Executive Conference, and philanthropy. The director developed strong working relations with public entities, the DOE, DHS, DOH, UH, P20, and SFA in her work with public pre-K expansion, the Ready Keiki initiative, the stipend program, PGGB5 renewal grant, and data systems work. The director has connected with national early childhood organizations, participated in conferences, and attended workshops with topics ranging from policy to learning environments to apprenticeships, etc., both in person and virtually, to expand her understanding of the complexity of the early childhood landscape and its many partners. Board members recommend that the director build strong relationships with private entities similar to those developed with the public sector, and be mindful of supporting private provider sustainability as expansion proceeds. Also recommended was seeking collaborative opportunities to share professional opportunities across both sectors. Increased transparency and engagement with private partners were the needs cited in the one improvement meeting rating, but no evidence that led to that rating was offered. So this particular item bordered between the meets and exceed expectations. The first three bullets really are indicative of the evidence used to support those particular ratings. The last bullet is an indication of where improvement and ongoing work can take place within particularly the private sector. All right, let's move to the final area that was selected as a priority. This related to professionalism. The executive director demonstrates a high level of ethical and professional behavior in their interactions, both internally and externally, supports the diversity of our state, and models both transparency and reflective practices. The board ratings, half the members of the board who rated the director indicated that she has exceeded expectation. The other half indicated that she meets expectation in this particular category. Rather than summarizing these comments, I've selected in this section to pull out specific comments that were offered to share with you the overlap in the commentaries. These are all by separate individuals. Yuko has actively supported the diversity of our state and consistently modeled transparency and reflective practice. In her interactions with Yuko, she demonstrates an appreciation and recognition of the multicultural and diverse nature of the young children in our state. Yuko has been clear around how her work is aligned with the year one action plan that she developed and shared with the ELB during her interview. She has been transparent about the progress she is making with meeting her personal goals for the first year. She represents the state office well at various meetings throughout the sector, and her professionalism and proactive nature and have enabled EOEL to work harmoniously with the Lieutenant Governor's Ready Keiki Initiative, Schools Facility Authority, the DOE, and various other organizations. Yuko skillfully models reflective practice and transparency as a leader. Her updates to the ELB include mistakes, lessons learned, and the why behind her decisions. Those were the comments and the ratings from the three priorities established. The next section are the recommended goals and then one final additional comment that was offered. These goals were all, and I want to remind everyone, single items. They were not mentioned by more than one person, so there is less of a thread to be considered. Assess the staffing needs at EOEL and identify any critical positions that need to be filled to enhance the team's effectiveness based upon the rapid expansion of the program in the coming year. Second, increase staff development focused on unity and relationship building. The third, develop a work plan for working with county coordinators. I've taken these two general statements. They had more specific items that can be considered as well about how to achieve those recommendations. Increase transparency and strengthen collaboration across sectors. Develop working relationships with new board and its chair. And finally, prioritize the many desired initiatives. This is based upon the director's self-evaluation items listed, and align them with the reality of staff capacity and the time frame required in light of the current movement toward expansion of the public pre-K program to ensure system building efforts continue. And of course, built into the other rated areas are things related to the private sector partnerships and relationships expansion as well. And one final additional comment in this section. It's been an absolute pleasure getting to know Yuko in her first year. She appears to have handled the executive leadership transition very well and has formed valuable partnerships that propel the state plan forward, which is particularly noteworthy in a year that has been full of transition, not least of all to do with the future of the board structure. I commend her professionalism and great attitude in managing these difficult transitions. And we move up a little bit, Ashley. So the chair moves to rate the director, Yuko Ari Cross's annual evaluation of the 2022-23 year as follows. Standard 1.1 meets expectations. Standard 1.2 meets expectations. Standard 5 exceeds expectations. And overall meets expectations. The motion has been made and put on the floor by the chair. Is there a second?
I second, Bob. This is Melody.
Thanks, Melody, for the second. The motion has been made and seconded to rate the director as listed here. And the floor is now open for any discussion about the motion items as well as the comments that were offered in support of them. Yuko, this is also a time if you wanted to make any comments. You certainly could.
Okay, sure. So first of all, I wanted to say thank you so much for giving me your time when I first jumped on board to meet one-on-one with each of you so that I could learn more about the work that you do and meet you in your spaces of where you actually do your work. I think it was very helpful to see things from your eyes and to see the work that you are doing. It helps to build my picture. And so I appreciate the conversations and the work and the dialogue. I think I really appreciated the thoughtful discussions that we've had and problem-solving discussions and trying to see how we can work together to meet the needs of our kids and our families and our communities. I appreciate the feedback on the evaluation, and once I can kind of digest it, then I can come back around and then I'll move forward with addressing, I guess, how I'm going to address it moving forward. But I want to say thank you very much. It's been great working with each of you this last year. Thank you.
Thank you, Yuko. Anyone else have any comments or observations to make? Hearing none, we'll move to approve the motion that's before you, which is to accept the ratings that are listed for the annual evaluation for the director for 2022-23. Okay, Ilani.
Aye.
Ben.
Aye.
May.
Aye.
I vote aye. Napua.
Aye.
Mari.
Aye.
Melody.
Aye.
Thank you. All right, the board has approved the director evaluation as listed here. And as a reminder, the overall assessment is that the director has met the priorities that were set this year, with standard 5 around professionalism being somewhere in the middle, since we lean toward exceeds, and all agree that at minimum they have been met, but more than that for the most part. So thank you, everyone. All right, at this point, they're on the agenda. We can close this room now if you like at this point. The next item on the agenda is another opportunity for the public to make any comment if they choose to, with a time limit and addressing agenda items as listed. Or any public comment? I don't see anything in the chat. Am I missing anything? No. All right, there are no comments in the chat, so we can move to item number 9, which are the member updates. Are there any member updates? I guess silence indicates that there are none. All right, the agenda items, outcomes that we have for this meeting are 3 that we wish to recognize. First of all, we want to wish Chris and Colleen the best as they move into the next phase of their lives, and to ensure that they both recognize that we respect the contributions and appreciate all that they have offered to the Early Learning Board and the early childhood community in general. Second outcome for this meeting is that transition information has been provided. The board, remember, will continue to function until a new board is appointed. A place is being defined online for the inclusion of information for the new board to support its transition. And we are waiting to hear from the governor's office if there are any other ways in which the board might be supportive of the transition. And finally, the director's evaluation ratings as presented through the input summary of the input document from the board has been approved. And that's all we have for agenda outcomes for this meeting. And Carrie is not here to provide us with any closing thoughts. So I will just wish you all a good weekend. Plan on seeing you in July in the same place at the same time as we normally do. And we'll certainly alert you to any news that we learn in the meantime. Thank you all who could attend today. I know it's a challenging time of the year for everyone. Your work is always much appreciated. Aloha.